Hello, hello. It's December 1st, but yesterday was Saturday, November 30th. And this is the last recap of the month. The first week of December, we're not meeting, so we'll have to wait until December 10th, in which I won't even be there for that long anyway because I have other plans, but we'll see what happens. Um, yeah, so Saturday's games were mostly awful. And I say awful just because I lost all of them. So spoiler alert. Well, I won one game, but yeah. No, I was pretty upset after the second game, and I think that just carried over into the rest of the games. I was just in a bad mood for basically throwing an entire game away. It felt like, but such is life. We'll go through them and just see what happens. So, game number one, playing against Emmanuel. I have the white pieces, and e4 d6. So we're going into a Peertz. The Peertz tends to transpose into the modern with something like g6, bishop g7, in which I would play my usual knight c3, bishop e3, queen d2, castle, h4, h5, tap, blah, 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 and attack the king side. But he played knight c6, or knight c6. I don't know why I emphasized c as if I was clarifying, but then he played knight c6, and I'm like, that's interesting. I wanted to just ignore it and play knight f3, but I knew, like, in my head, I was like, I know the computer likes these pawn pushes against the knights like this, so that's what I did. So I played d5. He plays 95. And I know in the Alekhine, so I'm gonna go back and just show you, in the Alekhine, I play the 4 pawns, which is this. Or sometimes it's like this. So you get these very forward pawns. It's not too hard to actually defend all of them, just because black has spent so much time moving the knight that you have time to develop to start protecting everything and then pushing forward. But here I was trying to do the same thing but mirrored, so I played f4, which is the best move according to the computer. But going into like the same ideas, I just played knight f3, c6, c4. So you can kind of see I have like a mirrored pawn structure to the 4 pawns in the Alekhine. Granted, it's on Alekhine because his knight is on d7, but I figured it'd be the same ideas or close to it. So we trade on d5. He plays g6, bishop g7, and I'm just kind of developing normally, just making sure this pawn is protected. This pawn is already protected. Castle, knight b6, and pretty normal development from here. But you'll see, I gave this check for no reason. I'm not sure what I was going for here, but I gave him a check, and we traded off bishops. And then I played e5, and you can see this is bad. I totally overlooked the fact that this pawn is not protected enough. The e4 pawn was the third defender to the d5 pawn. So if I wanted to push e5, what I needed to do was find a way to add another defender here. So maybe like rook f7, rook d2, or rook f7, rook f2, rook d2, for example. Or maybe I would play like bishop e3 first. Otherwise, it'd have to be like queen d3, rook d1, or queen somewhere and then rook d1. So I overlooked this, and he takes back with the pawn, or he takes on e5 first, which I was thinking, okay, can I somehow protect this pawn again? But I didn't think so. I decided to take back the e5 pawn with the knight, getting a tempo on his queen. And if he takes with the queen, I'll take back. Well, actually, you can't take with the queen because knight takes. So I get one extra tempo to try to figure something out. But obviously it's not going to be enough to defend this pawn. I need 2 turns to defend it. So I just played rook e1, and I said, okay, I'm just going to have to give up that pawn. That's my mistake. But it's still a playable position, right? He still hasn't castled yet. I mean, he's about to, so that's not really a concern. But, I'll figure out to play something like bishop e3, rook c1. Maybe I can get tempo with knight b5. I was really considering knight b5 in this position. but I didn't really see a clear plan after knight b5. Like, what am I doing afterwards? You know, I guess he has queen c5, but I can block, but I'm still losing this pawn here. I guess you would take this way, but yeah, so it's good that I rejected knight b5. I just played rook e1, takes my pawn on d5, take back with the knight. He takes back with the queen, and I'm not obligated to take his queen. Like, he can take mine, and he's up a pawn, which I figured he was going to do at some point. But I didn't see a reason to not give him tempo, but I didn't see a reason to take myself. And if he takes me, I get the d-file. Obviously, he's going to be able to contest it later, but at least I have it for now. So I figured, all right, you take me. I'm just going to move my bishop to e3. And maybe in the future, I can get rook c1 in. To my surprise, he takes my knight. And this is a surprise for me because, you know, this is going to weaken all of your dark squares around your king, which, you know, I still have a dark squared bishop, so it might be a bit of a concern later. But yeah, I didn't see a reason to trade this fianchetto bishop off for a knight in the center, because this knight is, much as it's centralized and controlling a lot of squares, I'm not really attacking these squares. These squares are, well, that's controlled, and this square is kind of like whatever. It's also controlled by the knight. So I didn't see a good reason to trade this knight off for his bishop. So I took back with the pawn because, I mean, what else, right? And now he trades queen, so I'm like, okay, sure. I was thinking about taking with the the E rook, but my ambitious brain was like, oh, maybe I can somehow sack this pawn and like go over here and pin. But no, I probably should have taken with the E rook. Taking with this one is also, wait, what? I'm seeing the computer is saying, oh no, I just can't read. Never mind. Yeah, so taking with the E rook was probably better just to get this file, and then on the next move I would play rook a c1. But I took with the A rook, he plays knight c4, and now he's obviously attacking both of these pawns, and technically my bishop as well, which I don't want to trade off. So I played bishop a6, bishop h6. Reason is I want to cut off his king from castling. It's like, it doesn't mean that much because we're getting into an endgame, but you know, it's something, right? Like, I need to squeeze out as much advantage as I can from this position. Yes, he gets my b pawn, but I figured I could just attack it with rook b1. He has to move, and then I'll just win this pawn back. And now, like, I'm starting to get into his position. He can't connect his rooks very easily, also because if I land on b7, you can't play king d7 to try to connect your rooks. So I was like, okay, this looks fine. He played rook d8, and I didn't want to trade just instinctively, but I didn't see a better move. Yeah, I did take, but I didn't know why I should have taken, I guess is what it is. But I didn't see anything else, I just took. Then I played b3, which is not the way to go. I should have played rook d1. Rook d1, king e8, and then rook c1. Sure. I just played b3 right away to kick his knight away. Played rook f1 to try to attack this pawn. Right, you can defend it with king e8, which is what I was expecting. From there, I was just going to figure it out. Maybe I'd go like bishop g7 and just go back after rook g8 or something. But to my surprise, he played king d7. So I just took the free pawn. Now the pawn count is equal. I have a very advanced pawn on e5, which I can kind of protect with something like bishop f4 and maybe even bishop g3 afterwards. I can always bring my rook back if I need to. And at some point, I need to bring my king in. So I was like, okay, at least it's equal. But then he attacks my rook and the pawn by playing king e6, which I didn't even see. Obviously, I have to move back with my rook, so I played rook f1. I should have played rook g7. And then you take my pawn. But then I take you, and then I take you. So I guess that was probably better. But I was starting to fall, I think, under 2 minutes or maybe a minute and a half. So I was just moving quickly. So I played rook f1. And then he blunders, unfortunately, with taking the pawn on e5. And it's a very simple tactic here if you want to pause to find it. But you should see pretty quickly it's just bishop g7. Forking king and the rook. So I win the rook. And from here, I mean, it's just a slow eventual conversion. I win the pawn on e7. Bring my bishop back. And now I actually have this. It's not really a fork or a skewer per se, but you know, he does have that fork, but I just move my rook out of the way and it's fine. You know, night before I take his pawn on h6, he takes my pawn on a2, and I was okay with this because I thought I could trap his knight with bishop d2 because it's cutting off these 3 squares. This is a little like nice formation to help you see if you can trap a knight or at least control a knight. You just need to be 3 squares away horizontally from the knight to cover its escape squares. On the edge of the board, it's much easier because you can't retreat the other way, and I'm controlling all of these. But if, let's just say, right, if we look here, you can see the knight is actually being controlled by my bishop. So this is a nice little formation, just 3 squares away on the same axis. Obviously, he can retreat this way. There's nothing you can do about that, but this is a good way to see if you can trap a knight. Oops. Yeah. But he plays b4. I try to trap his rook with rook a1. He plays rook c3, which, I mean, his knight is not trapped, so b4 was a good move. But I take. Play rook c1, win the c-pawn, and then he ran out of time like 2 moves ago, but I just kept playing because, I mean, this is basically over. Yeah. So overall, I mean, I definitely flubbed this middle game by pushing a little too early. I also didn't know what the hell I was doing with bishop b5, so I should have reconsidered that. But yeah, after all of these trades, after all the trades there, I managed to equalize, so that was fine. This endgame, had he not blundered by taking on e5, it's -1, but I think it's still playable. Okay, going into game number 2, I'm playing against Anthony. I have the white pieces again. I did prepare something new against Anthony. Admittedly, I kind of forgot most of it by the time I sat down. Well, I was already sitting down, but by the time we actually started to play, I forgot most of the line. I kind of predicted the first 5 moves on how he would play it, and I was correct, but then I didn't know the middle game plans after that, so it's kind of awkward. But as you may know, if you are a frequent watcher, Anthony plays the French. And the new variation I prepared against him was the Schlechter, which is bishop d3. And I chose this because in the Tarrasch and the b3 gambit, so in the Tarrasch where I go knight d2, and in the b3 gambit where I go b3 on move 2, and fianchetto this, I realized that he likes to fianchetto the light squared bishop. You know, assuming we don't get an advance. And I noticed that he also plays like that in d4 style openings. He'll play like a Queen's Indian kind of thing with b6, e6, bishop b7, stuff like that. So I wanted something to counteract his fianchettoed bishop plan. Originally, what I was playing was this version of this line of the Tarrasch, with bishop b5 check c6, bishop, and then go back to d3. This is what I played against him last time, and the reason I wanted this is because his c6 pawn is going to prevent him from fianchettoing as quickly. So that was one idea I had, and then I found this variation on. I was predicting he was going to take on e4, which is actually what he did, because he takes on e4 in the Tarrasch. I figured he would also take against this Schlechter, and I was right. So he did take on e4. I take back with the bishop, and now you can see the whole point of me wanting to choose this line. I predicted he would take on e4, and I would take back with the bishop, and now he can't fianchetto his bishop because my bishop is on that diagonal. As a side note, I was also looking at lines where maybe I could just play g3 right away, but I haven't looked into it past that. So, yeah. So bishop takes e4. He plays knight d7. I think he was just going with the normal, the Tarrasch lines. Here, I know c5 is a thematic move in these French style positions. Knight f6 is also a main move, kicking my bishop back one square, which is totally fine by me. But he played knight d7. I played knight e2. I don't want to play knight f3 because I want my bishop on f3 to maintain this diagonal. So now we have knight f6. I drop back, knight e7, or bishop e7, c3, a6, h6. Here I kind of forgot all the plans in the position already. So that was that's not good. But I mean, what is there to do in this position, really, right? His position is very cramped. I can just castle. But moreover, I just wanted to get a knight on e5. I don't know why I wanted to, but that's just what I went for. So I went knight a3, a6, bishop f4. Apparently bishop f4 loses to g5, which I didn't. That's not g5. g5. So bishop g3, g4. Oh, and I'm losing my bishop. Wow. Okay, I didn't see that. Ah, it's because my knight's here. Huh. Okay. Okay, so we both missed the g5 here. He plays rook b8, and I figured he still wanted to try to fianchetto and contest my bishop. But I continued with knight c4, trying to get my knight to a5, or e5. He plays b5, which hits my knight, and I missed a very good move here, which was knight a5. I guess the reason is that you can't fianchetto your bishop anymore, and my knight is stuck here. Stuck here, not in the sense that like I can't move it back. I can totally move it back, but it's gonna stay here, and he's gonna have a hard time getting rid of it. And now he can't actually open his bishop. So I didn't see this idea, and I'll need to remember this if I want to play this line again. But yeah, I didn't see knight a5. I just played knight e5 because that's what I was going for to begin with. We have a trade, and I'm like, okay, well, now my bishop is decently placed instead of at the knight, which I would have liked the knight, but such is life. He plays bishop b7. I play knight f4. Now I'm protecting the bishop with the queen. If he trades it off, I'm kind of fine. So usually in the French, you don't want to trade off the light squared bishop, but in this case, his bishop is actually decently strong because it's eyeing most of the board. But because my bishop is on the diagonal already, I can trade it off, right? My light squared bishop is also decent, don't get me wrong, but my dark squared bishop is better than his. So I figured this trade is still fine because I thought his bishop would be better than mine. So we trade queen f3, c5, very thematic. I totally missed bishop takes b8 here. And I just castled. And I could tell by his expression that he was upset about something, but I don't know why. I just couldn't see. I just didn't see bishop takes b8. But that gives him the chance to move his rook away. So he plays rook c8. Apparently it's still bad for him, which is crazy. I play dc. Now I'm attacking his queen. And he plays queen a5. And here I found a pretty interesting move, which was queen b7. Queen b7, the more I looked at it, the more I liked it, because I'm attacking his rook, obviously. If he tries to go to d8, I can just trade it off and then bring my other rook to d8. And now, actually, it's not even that bad. Oh, I have queen c6. Okay, so maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was. But I also, like, in the back of my mind, knew I have this passed pawn that could be very dangerous. If he castles, which is what he did in the game, I get his bishop. And I forgot why rook d8 was so bad. I forgot why this was not good for him. Ah, bishop d6. And now he can't castle. Okay. Yeah, I saw rook d8 and I thought it was still bad and I couldn't remember why. But anyway, he castles. I take his bishop. He takes on a2. And here I was trying to make rook d7 work. It doesn't work because he takes my rook and I can't actually bulldoze through his position. I could try doing something crazy like this, but he doesn't have to take. He can just move his rook here. All right, and now I have nothing. So I was looking at this, and I'm like, okay, I want to play rook d7 and then knight g6. That was my plan. I can't play it because his knight's in the way. So let me get rid of his knight. So I took on f6. And I saw, obviously, he has queen a1 check, but I saw queen a1, king c2, queen a4, and then I figured, okay, I'll just shuffle back and forth, and I thought it'd be fine, right? Like, I still have all this pressure on his position. So queen a1, king c2, queen a4, but then here, I was like, okay, king c1, and here I basically threw the game away because I didn't see that my knight was hanging. Also, I should have went king b1 to avoid this check, right? Just generally speaking, I should have avoided that check. And I'm still winning because I'm still up the bishop that I won earlier in the game. So I could have played something like bishop d4. It's protected. Everything's protected. And now he can't even win this pawn. So, you know, if had I gone b1, king b1, I'm still winning. I'm still up a piece. So that would have been fine. But after I played king c1 and he took this, I just was, you know, I just like mentally gave up. I honestly just mentally gave up because I had such a good attack and I threw it all away. And the reason it's throwing it all away is because after I move after I get out of the check, so I played rook d2, he just takes my bishop. And apparently taking the bishop is not even the way to go. You need to play rook fe8. And this is slightly better. This is zeros. But what he did okay, sure. So what he did in the game was taking the queen immediately. And I figured, all right, I probably just queen trade, go into a rook endgame. I have the passed c pawn. So I protected it with b4. I figured, okay, this should still be fine. It's 6-6. My rooks are more active. I figured I'd be all right. So I am winning here. But as you can see, I just had the hardest time trying to figure out how to push my d pawn. And I didn't want to lose my pawns over here. So I spent a lot of time just like messing around here. Maybe not messing around, but yeah, I didn't really know how to protect everything. And you may remember, like, wait, Kenny, I thought you said you lost this game. Yeah, I kind of did. I played c4. I don't know why I played c4. I know why I played c4. I thought take, and I was going to start pushing my pawns and they'd be connected, but silly Kenny, no, he takes with check, and I don't actually have this passed pawn. I have this one, but he's got a 4-on-3 here, so I really need to like find a way to make this work. But yeah, it's not so simple, right? Probably what I should have done was like, okay, we're getting into the game, but probably after this, what I should have done was do something like this. And let's just say random move here. I probably should have brought my rook behind the pawn and used this rook to start attacking or defending or whatever, right? And then just push this guy up. Obviously, he's going to like come here and block, but yeah, anyway. I'm going to fast forward through the rest of this game just because you can just see my demise here. Yeah. So I threw that game too. Well, not as well. Well, I threw it again, I should say. Just too much activity. from his pawns, and I couldn't figure out a way to push my pawns without losing it immediately. So that was kind of rough. Yeah. And usually I'm better at endgames than this, but I guess today was just not the day. Like I said, I think I was just still mentally boomed from throwing the game in the earlier position with King C1. So, yeah, fun stuff. Alrighty, going on to the third game. We're switching colors. I have the black pieces. E4, as he always does. And here, I don't know, I felt like switching it up, and I played a modern, even though I haven't looked at this in a long ass time. I kind of just went on my instincts, so we get this position here. Yeah, I mean, this is like a pretty normal developing scheme if you don't have a dedicated system to fight against the modern, or the King's Indian for the matter. Yeah, this is like basically a King's Indian if you just imagine we started with d4 instead and just got these moves. But anyway, I played bishop g4, and we got to this position, and I remembered that when the bishop goes to d3, the light squared bishop, it blocks the queen from protecting the d4 pawn, so you can try to play against that in the opening, or like the early middle game. So that's what I went for. I went for bishop g4. After h3, I take the knight. And now you can see there's only one defender on this pawn here. So to add another defender, I need to move my knight, actually. Oops. I need to move my knight so that I can actually take here. So I played knight d7. He played rook a d1, and I just won the free pawn. And after h4, I played knight e5. I just wanted to take another piece off the board right away, which I did. And then I figured, okay, now my position is even better. I have this nice bishop that's on a long diagonal. This h4 pawn, I probably could have played h5, but I didn't. I just brought my bishop back to g7. He played h5. I'm kind of just like ignoring the threat, really. I could have taken, but I didn't really see a need to take. I also okay, he has rook h3 coming, but I figured I would be fine. So I just played e5, which I probably should not have played because it's blocking in the bishop I literally just made space for. Maybe like c5 would have been a little more thematic. But yeah, I don't know. I just played e5 because I wanted to attack the queen, which is really stupid of me. He played queen g4. I played c6. I didn't want a knight coming into d5 because I would have like no way to get rid of it. So he takes on g6. I take back with the f pawn. I could have taken back with the h pawn, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like leaving the h file totally open. So he plays rook h3. I played rook f4 just to, again, I was kind of going into silly mode and just go, haha, me attack queen. But I mean, the other idea of this move is also to play queen f6, rook f1, or sorry, rook f8. Yeah, my bishop is a little stuck behind this pawn, but I figured maybe in the future I'll be able to break here and push. He gives me a check. I move to h8, and he takes the pawn on g6, which is pinned, or the h pawn is pinned, so I can't recapture. I played rook h4, trying to trade off rooks. In this part of the game, I'm just like trying to trade stuff off because I was up a pawn, but I'm not up a pawn anymore. So yeah, now my position is really bad. I'm losing all my pawns. My bishop is trapped behind my own pawn. And yeah, I mean, what to do, right? So here I was looking at it, I'm like, I was trying to find a move. I played rook d4. I was going to go after his pawns, and if he played b3, I was going to go here to hit this pawn, then I could go here to get tempo on his knight and start harassing his position before he can take my pawn. But then after some calculation, I was like, hold the phones. Hold on a goddamn second. I can't play any of those moves. All right, so let's just say, if I take here, it's mate. Because boom, bam, boom, bam. So it's like, oh shit, I just spent 2 minutes calculating and now I can't even take this pawn. So he takes on b7. and I just played rook d6 to protect this pawn at the very least. I knew I was gonna lose one of these two pawns, so yeah, I'm gonna lose one of these two pawns, and I was like, all right, I guess I'll lose the a pawn, just so that this doesn't happen still. So he takes that one, and here I'm like, oh, I'm gonna play rook h6 because I'm threatening check here, check. So like random move. So I was hoping it would be here, there, here, and then I was like, I'll figure something out after that. But no, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. I literally said to myself like 2 or 3 turns ago, I can't move my rook off the d file until I've played bishop f8 or h6. That's what I thought in my head, and then I just did it anyway. So yeah, I was like, I just sat there. I'm like, why am I like this? Like, I told myself, don't move the rook, and then I moved the rook. So another disappointing loss, but what are you gonna do? Sometimes you just suck. All right, moving on to the fourth game. Moving on to the fourth game. Wayne shows up. So after he's been playing a few games already against Emmanuel while I was playing Anthony, and yeah, we decided to switch over because we both tables managed to finish roughly at the same time. So of course I'm playing e4. He plays e5, and he surprised me already. It's not the first time he's played e4, e5 against me at all. There's a warm-up game a long time ago we played where like he just got like his king stuck on the side of the board in some opening. I think it was similar to what happened in the game, but yeah, anyway. Knight c6, d4, so we're playing into a scotch, which is my favorite opening. Like, this is one of the openings I know the best. And then he plays this d6 line, and I saw this on the board, and I was just like, oh god, here we go. This is going to be a boring-ass game. Keep in mind, like, I'm still mentally checked out from the second game of the day against Anthony, where I had a very strong attack and I was up a piece. So I'm like, okay, alright, fine, let's do this. Trade queens. I thought for a little bit, I was like, is there somehow a way we don't have to trade queens? And I looked at it, I'm like, if I don't trade queens, I don't see any advantage either. So I was like, alright, fine, let's just trade queens. And we get this position, castles with check, king e7, move my knight out of the way so he doesn't double my pawns. We trade here. And then I'm like, oh wait, I'm winning a pawn here. This is what I thought, like, when we got to this position, because I can take here. I was like, oh wait, I'm up a pawn. And then I'm like, e4, I'm like, oh boy. So now I have to calculate if this trade is good. Yeah, apparently it's not good. I should have played knight g5, but I decided to take because, I don't know. So I took again. He takes back with the bishop, and I can't take here because then I get forked with the bishop. I was considering g3 actually, just to keep his pawn here and make it look stupid, but I thought it'd be a little difficult to win the pawn back because I'd have to do something like, I don't know, let's just say here. I'd have to go like here and then find another way to add an attacker to it. So I guess after g3, maybe he goes like, I don't know, h4 or something. Or you could do this, and now I can't play here, and if he plays that, I'd have to like reroute my bishop like this or something, or find a way to trade this off, and then I felt like it was just going to take way too long. So I just played rook g1 so that I could take next turn, or maybe not next turn, but I could take later. He plays h3. I do take on f3. He takes back, move my rook out of the way, also hitting his bishop. He goes here, but that's fine because I just moved back. Bishop d6. Now I want to trade off the bishops because I can't really get rid of it any other way. So we have a trade. He plays g5. I play f6 just to stop this pawn from being pushed. Admittedly, I was also considering h3, but I didn't see much of a difference. But yeah, as you can see here, kind of putting pressure on his bishop. Plays that. Rook e8. And I mean, this position, it's 5 pawns versus 5 pawns. Dark sword bishops, 2 rooks. We could try to just liquidate and just go into a king pawn endgame. But I was like, maybe I have some pressure on the bishop here. So I kept playing, of course. He defends. I decided to take. And I was actually considering taking one more time like this. But I didn't see a difference between that and just leaving the pawn on the c file here, because it's isolated even if it's on c7 or on d6. And if anything, I thought, oh, if it's on d6, it's like one tempo fast. Well, I guess not necessarily one tempo faster, but I thought it'd be like slightly more advanced on the board, which is not what I necessarily wanted. But yeah, so I don't know. Here, I just played c3. I needed to play a lot more enthusiastically here, or energetically. Because we kind of have like a mirrored pawn structure where it's like a 3-on-2 with a hole in the middle versus a 3-on-2 with a hole in the middle. So I needed to push my pawns this way, and he's already like ahead of me in that race because he played g5 earlier in the game. But as you can see here, we have a trade. He gets to infiltrate, and yeah, so I didn't want him to play g4 and force me to trade and then be able to get in front of it, basically. So I played f4, but that wasn't the way to go, because now he plays g4, and I thought this was still fine because he can't really push this pawn very easily. And after a couple moves, I'm trying to push my pawns, but it's just not fast enough. And also after c5, like his king isn't actually getting pushed back, which is what I wanted him to do. His king is just gonna like inch forward again. Now these pawns are basically stuck. This rook controls my advance, and it's controlling this pawn. So basically, coming into this endgame, he was the one that was actually more active, despite you know, I thought I had double rooks, which was really good, but he actually got the activity instead of me. So that was bad. But I mean, from here, he's just slowly squeezing me out. A bunch of checks. He wins my h pawn, and he's slowly gonna advance his g pawn. And after we trade, he cuts my king off, and he's gonna promote another queen. I also ran out of time here. So yeah, I mean, the opening was fine. I was even better, but like, I don't know. I just can't seem to convert more positional advantages, I guess, where it's like I have a good position, but then I just can't, like, something happens where I just like don't recognize the advantage well enough, and then I just lose. So fun stuff, always fun. The last game of the day, we switched colors, and I did have to run like the day of. I had to leave right after this game, so we didn't really get to talk too much about it, unfortunately. But he plays d4 as per usual, and I've been playing the King's Indian against him, and it's been going okay. I would say I'm not losing out of the opening because of the King's Indian. I'm always losing in the middle game. Yeah, I'm always losing in the middle game. So King's Indian, he goes into a 4 pawns. Well, eventually he gets into a 4 pawns. So I know this already. I've studied this a little bit. So c5, and against d5, I know e6 is the move to break it. But then he plays bishop e3, and we trade on d5. In my mind, I was like, rook e3, or rook e8. I was like, rook e8 looks interesting. So I saw rook e8, queen d2, and then I stopped calculating here. And I just was like, I know my other plan in this position is a6, b5. So let me just go with that plan. All right, I didn't appreciate how strong rook e8 actually was, because his king is still in the center. So queen e7. It's like, how do you defend this bishop anymore? You'd have to play like king f2. or not, maybe not even king f2, right? Because king f2 bishop, or not, king f2 knight g4, and I'm winning this anyway. And then here, I mean, still knight g4. So I very, very briefly saw this idea, but I just like discarded it for no good reason. Yeah, so that was a little unfortunate for me. So this is actually the second time today where I had like a passing thought of playing a move, didn't play it, and it turns out, well, maybe not in the first game so much, but it would have been a really nice move to play because it would have like stopped. In the first situation, it would have stopped a lot of counterplay, and then in this situation, it's just straight up winning. So, yeah, I saw rook e8. I didn't play rook e8 to just win the game on the spot. I just played a6, which I'm still better, but it's only -1 instead of winning a piece. He plays a4, and I still have this rook e8 idea. I do play it this time around, and after queen d2, I played bishop d7. Again, I didn't see knight b4 as a follow-up to rook e8. But if I had thought it through and I really appreciated the strength of rook e8, I probably would have played it and it would have been better. I would have been better in like 10 moves. Yeah, so I played bishop d7, threatening the pawn, which is a very rudimentary plan. But moreover, what I actually wanted to do was push b5, because I figured in the future, right, I would have boom, boom, boom. Well, maybe not right away, but yeah, I figured I could at least get something. But then I realized AB doesn't work. So I played knight g4 here, but it doesn't actually do anything because of well, his king is not pinned anymore, so it didn't matter. Regardless, I took because I'm getting rid of the dark squared bishop, and now my dark squared bishop is very strong. Queen b6 was a good move IMO because I'm attacking this pawn twice. And if this rook moves, then I take the bishop. I guess he could have also went knight d1 to try to protect the pawn there. But I don't know, that looks a little weird. He does play rook b1. I take on a4. He castles. Now I play knight d7. So I saw when I played before I played knight d7 that he can go b3, and I could take and get. Oh, that's hanging. But queen d3, right? So this is what happened in the game. And I saw this, and I was like, I think this is still okay, all things considered. Granted, I didn't play the right follow-up, which was actually bishop c4, just like double attack, or counter-attacking his queen after mine gets exposed. But yeah, I played knight f6, because I thought I was still, even after he takes my bishop, I thought, okay, well, I have 2 pawns for my bishop, I should be still fine, right? And moreover, after queen c7, I needed to protect the pawn, so I played rook b8. I should have played this rook to b8 probably, if I was going to do that, but I figured, okay, I have 2 rooks behind the pawns, I can push them, and that would be great. But he manages to get counterplay before I can start activating my pawns on the A and B files with f5. Knight h5, my main plan was just to come here and trade off another piece, but he plays g3, and you can start seeing here that he's getting a lot of pressure on my position, right? This queen is supporting the pawn in a way. This knight can hop in. This knight's already in my position. And it's just going from bad to worse here. He takes my knight on h5, damaging my pawn structure. He plays f6 to close the door. But I can take, and I thought I was still surviving after queen h7, king f8, which is what I played. But yeah, now he takes my pawn. I actually thought he had knight e6 here, which is still making some amount of moves, I guess. But yeah, I saw this, and if I take, he takes, and if I don't take, he takes. So I was like, wow, I missed knight e6, but he didn't see it, so he played queen h5 instead, and I played queen e7. I'm just trying to survive. his other knight's coming in. I gotta move it out of the way. And after I move my king out of check, right, I figured this is still bad because of this and like here. I guess there would be better. I thought I was just getting mated here in some way. Maybe not. But yeah, after I played king e8, he just skewers with rook e3. I have to take it. And I just played bishop e5, trying to like block this file, so I could try to run away somehow and like get my rooks over. But you can see that's not gonna work. Yeah, and this game's over. I mean, yeah, so I totally missed the winning idea in the opening, which... yeah, I don't know. I didn't respect how good this is. And this is like, again, like I said before, this is the second time today where not today, but yesterday, where I just like missed a good idea in some part of the game, and I was just like, no, it's fine. Yeah. So, at any rate, those are my games today. We're not meeting this upcoming week, the first week of December, so stay tuned, I guess. I do plan on going to a tournament on Sunday the 8th, like a 25 delay 5, so I do need to prep for that. I don't know how, but I need to. If I have score sheets, I'll make a review of those games as well, but we'll see what happens.